Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, October 8th, and we are here at the Mount Carmel Center, which was formerly the site of the Branch Davidian compound. And for those of you that were not aware, this site was infamous for the ATF raid that occurred on February 28th, 1993, where 4 ATF agents were killed, as well as several Branch Davidians in an intense gun battle. What unfolded after that was it resulted in a 51-day standoff. And after 51 days, the Attorney General of the U.S. at the time, Janet Reno, ordered that the Branch Davidian be raided by the U.S. Army National Guard. It was also on that day when the tanks moved in, dispersed tear gas, and hours after that occurred, a fire broke out, and tragically, 82 people were killed, including 18 who were children. And this is the memorial that lists all the names of the Branch Davidians who died on that tragic and horrific day. Says here on February 28th, the church and its members, known as Branch Davidians, came under fire by the ATF and FBI agents. And for 51 days, the Davidians and their leader, David Koresh, stood proudly. And on April 19th, 1993, the Davidians and their church were burned to the ground. 82 perished during the siege. 18 were children, 10 years or older. And these are all their names that are listed. Now, I won't take sides here, but I will say that I would definitely say our U.S. government was largely at fault for it. But at the same time, and I'm not saying that the leader, David Koresh, was a saint or anything of that matter, but I mean, both parties were at fault. But one certainly overstepped their boundaries. It's coming here, it's very somber. And even though today is a very, very quiet, and it appears on the surface to be very peaceful, it's also, I guess you say, very bittersweet, because you're here to honor those who died on that tragic day. As you can see, this was the entrance where the ATF agents moved in, and they moved down this dirt road, and right where this chapel is, right here, this is the actual spot of where the Branch Davidian compound once stood. It's right here. And anyway, and this, all you see what is left is just the foundation. And I mean, there's barely anything that's laying around. I mean, it's almost like it never even happened, which is pretty surreal. But anyway, yeah, this is where it all once stood, and what it is today is it's actually home to former Branch Davidians. They've pretty much made it into just a small, like a little community. I mean, they have their chapel, but it's pretty much just like their own little community per se, because they have some homes here and stuff. But anyway, so this is what you see when you come down here to visit. This is the this section right here is where this was what was once the basement. The National Guard deployed the tear gas in this area. The women and children were placed in the basement in order to avoid being gassed. But then once the place caught fire, the smoke from the fire traveled into the basement, and unfortunately, the women and the children perished from smoke inhalation. This is a very, very eerie and very somber scene. Anyway, but this is what was left of it. Yeah. Godspeed to the women and children and the family members who lost their loved ones on that day. What we're coming up to now is what was, I believe it was what was once their pool. Yeah, the pool was right next to the Branch Davidian compound. here, because like again, this area, well, I mean, so even though it's no longer there, but the Branch Davidian compound was here, and the area where I mentioned earlier, where the women and children were gassed, on that foundation itself is where the tower once was. So, and if you look to the right here, this is where their actual pool was. Yeah, it's well, yeah, it's as I said, very somber. And of course, we'll get what we got over here. This was also, part of their land. But during the 51-day standoff, I mean, you had dozens of law enforcement agents, FBI, and National Guard troops that set up a perimeter all around this area. I mean, they had snipers. They had snipers probably like up on top of that awning or that roof. I mean, pretty much just in every corner, probably up in the trees as well. I mean, they literally had this place on lockdown, for those 51 days. And this, yeah, it was, it's hard to believe. I mean, that this was, that this all unfolded 31 years ago. I mean, it made all the national headlines. I mean, it was broadcasted on CNN 24/7. All right, well, there's one other site that I wanted to share with you all. Earlier, I touched on the vault, the area downstairs or in the basement where the women and children were fleeing when the tanks rolled in and dispersed the tear gas. Well, earlier I touched on that many of them were trapped and later suffocated and died from smoke inhalation. But what I didn't tell you was that this basement led to a garage, believe it or not, that was built underground. Yes, they actually had an underground garage. Because, I mean, if you look at the earlier photos before the raid, it shows a bus that was outside of the compound. Well, what they did was after the first raid on February 28th, the Branch Davidians moved the bus into the underground garage. And they also set up a stairwell, so in case if they try to raid the place again, if the U.S. government would raid the place again, then they would have access to go down to the vault, and then they would go through a stairwell down to where the bus was. Well, when the tanks moved in, they not only dispersed the gas, but they also ran over much of that stairwell that led to the underground garage. And anyway, to make a long story short, place caved in, and so which unfortunately meant that those who were trying to escape were unable to make it to the garage, and because of that, they were unable to make it to the bus. And not only did it crush the stairwell, but much of much of the structure crushed the bus. In fact, what you're seeing right here, and I know it's unbelievable, but this is what remained of the bus. Now, this is just the very end of it, because believe it or not, there's actually, if you look here, this actual structure right here was what was once the entrance to the actual underground garage, which meant that there was still the rest of the bus that's buried underground. So, but this is like just one small part of it that stuck out. So, but anyway, so overall, I mean, the Branch Davidians, did have a backup plan. I mean, they would use their bus in order to try to escape, in case that the U.S. government agents would stage another raid. But unfortunately, they weren't so lucky, because the tanks again rolled over and crushed much of the structure, which made the place cave in, which unfortunately caused all the remaining Branch Davidians to be trapped, and then they later died from smoke inhalation. So, yeah, it's very, very intense stuff. And again, what you're seeing here is this is the chapel. It's now, of course, It's home for the remaining Branch Davidians, or the surviving Branch Davidian members. Because earlier I touched on what I touched on the earlier video is that, I mean, this entire area is just now a community of the surviving Branch Davidian members. So I mean, it's just, so now it's just you're just a regular chapel. And all this area, of course, is where the compound once stood. Yeah. Actually, before I end this video, I brought my brother with me today. Did you have some remarks or any thoughts that you would like to say in terms of what you saw and what you experienced here today?
I think if this is how, this was the state of our government 31 years ago against the church group. Now, granted, they may not have the same beliefs that a lot of other people have, but still, the fact that this was 31 years ago and we think about where we are today is kind of scary. To think about how far we've come, and you know, what concerns do we have as part of the body of Christ right now. You know, like I said, I mean, granted, they had some different beliefs, right? And that doesn't mean that that's any less disturbing what happened here, and the fact that all these people died and the government never took responsibility for that is quite disturbing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are all imperfect beings in the eyes of God. And it's, you know, it's imperative that when you do take a position of authority, and when you are granted a position of higher power and authority, it's very imperative that, you know, you don't abuse it. But we as imperfect beings, you know, are prone to being very careless, and you know, we do overstep our boundaries. I would say overall, you know, just to close this entire video out, is that I encourage everyone, you know, to come out and visit, to learn, you know, because this is, believe it or not, this is a part of American history. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but it is. I mean, it was a very unfortunate and a tragic event, but it is embedded in our history. This is part of American history. So I would encourage those, you know, to come out, you know, and also to do their research, and just know of the times when U.S. government has overstepped their boundaries. And again, I'm not saying that the Branch Davidians or David Koresh was any better, but I'm just saying, I mean, it's that there's better ways to go about handling tense situations. So anyway, but I'll just go ahead and end it here. So other than that, take care and God bless.